young sister, you loved what? Poetry, writing, and then how did this angel come out of it?
Yeah, I always feel like music found me. You know how like it was just always in my orbit. My father's a really great musician. My mom sings. Our family plays music, and so I just fell in love with jazz really early. And I felt like it was like a vehicle through which I could tell a story that like felt honest to me. I love youth soul and gospel. I grew up in church, and so I always found that jazz was sort of like the meeting point. All of those sounds.
You've been surprised by age.
Yeah.
You're not like, oh, she's 50.
Yeah.
You're giving them a face of the future in the now.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like to really know that you're bringing and illuminating a space that young men and women may not have thought of? Wow, young people still do jazz.
Yeah, it's really important to me because I feel like jazz music is black music, and so it's really important that young black people are the people responsible for expanding the genre and expanding the music kind of beyond what it is now. And I find that, you know, a lot of people feel like jazz is old music, but if you think about the jazz's roots, it was always a very young, hip, like popular music. And I think a lot of young voices are emerging now because that's the tradition of the music to me. So it's a really important to me too.
If you were going to speak at a Howard or a Spelman, or, TSU, what would you say to the young women if you were speaking at graduation day and tell them about life and challenge them?
That's good. Well, I'm a Howard alumni. Yes.
HU?
You know. I'm also faculty here. I teach a lot of singers that remind me a lot of myself when I was studying at Howard. And so I get to speak to my Howard students on a daily. And so if I were to do it at on a broader stage, like an HBCU stage, I would tell the young black women specifically to listen to that voice that like always guides us, because we know we have that voice, and along the way people will try to quiet that voice and make us feel like it's not important. But to just listen to that voice and to speak your truth through whatever art or whatever your passion is.
So when you think of the idea of taking up space with your voice now, what spaces do you see yourself in that you've never been to yet?
Oh, that's good. Wow, I haven't really thought about that. I think I just see myself being more honest and being more being okay with belonging in whatever space I'm called to be in, whether it's like an orchestral space, whether it's like a straight ahead jazz space, a gospel space, a soul space. But I guess, the space I want to be in is the meeting point of all those sounds. And I want to do it and present whatever I'm presenting authentically and honestly.
You're now here, you're with my brother Blackstone, you've got guys like Robert Glassberg, you've got Young, and I'm sure she's obviously out there, the Jill Scott, who's kind of said that. Can you imagine a collaborative album if you got to pick all the hot sisters, throw in a little Shaka Khan, and then borrow some Sarah Vaughan to just remix into an album? What would you call that album?
Ooh, I would call it probably Legacy, Adam Blackstone, or Generations, or Wealth. Actually I would call it Wealth because we think about like monetary wealth is the thing that we want, and really the wealth lies in like tradition and ancestry, and like if we could do a record that represents some old school, some middle school, some new school, I think like that's the truest wealth. So I would call it wealth.
Yeah, you think of Sarah Vaughan, and you think of the women that really didn't get the opportunity that we hope for you. What would you say? You use the word truth. What is it for all musicians that are moving forward now to kind of live in that history of truth and then make new truths? Because truth changes, the lens changes a little bit.
Yeah. The truth continues to evolve as we evolve. But to answer your question of what I think of that truth, your question was Remind me what the question is, because it took me to a few different places.
No, I was really trying to say truth is here and it evolves. And truth for Sarah Vaughan was one place. The truth, obviously, for your, and for all the sisters, we truly know that you went through a lot of pain. And our supporter, Kamala Harris, our sister, your Asian sister, and that pain of being a Black superwoman is a truth.
It is a truth.
And it is always ignored.
Yeah.
And then always blamed. But how are you navigating that, even in songs you're writing?
I think I'm just doing my best to speak to that, to be honest about it, to be honest about the truth, but also like not focus as much on the sadness of the truth as like the possibility of the truth. To focus in on like what does it look like if we invite like ease and strength and power and all, like the whole spectrum, not just one or the other. We can exist as all things if we just open our minds to it. And so in my art, I try to be reflective of all of the emotions, the whole thing.
Right. Lastly, because I know you gotta go, you heard the nomination. Where were you? And then what about all these teachers that guided you? How did they speak to you as you got that call and said, "Hey, you know what? You're nominated," and you've been touched?
I think a lot of my teachers saw it in me before I did, and it was like a confirmation to me more than anything. They were like, of course, we knew this. We knew this when we met you. We knew this as we were mentoring you, as we were nurturing your talent. And so it felt good for them to like acknowledge me in that way, but also like give me that like nod, like this has been your path and continue to walk on it. I found out the news when I was with my husband and my dog, and all three of us like jumped up. We screamed. My dog grabbed some Gatorade. I don't even know where it came from. He was jumping. And so it was like a happy moment that I wish I could just bottle up, because that feeling was just, whenever I'm sad, whenever, the world we live in is tight. It's a lot of chaos. And I think a lot of us are afraid, a lot of us are sad. And so whenever I'm not feeling my best, I remember that feeling. I go back to that.
Yeah. Last, for all young sisters, what is your superpower? Or just describe some of your superpowers.
Yes, my superpower is my softness. I always struggled with growing up as a Black girl. I grew up in the South in North Carolina, but have roots in DC. That's where I live now. And I always struggled with not being like hard. I felt like people would tell me, you need to toughen up, and you need to, just a little bit. And that's true. Yes, I can't let people take advantage of me, but also I'm realizing my softness, my gentleness is something that helps me to like relate to people. And as an artist, a writer, it's really important that we can see people and relate so that our stories reflect what we see. And so I think my softness is my superpower.
So can you scat us a goodbye, a love message for those who haven't heard this beautiful voice?
Yeah. I love you. Goodbye.